When someone disappears, every detail matters. Every timeline, every statement, every unanswered question. The case of Casey Pitzer is one of those stories where the more the investigators and families search for answers, the more complicated the stories seem to become.
Today, we carefully examine the case, the investigation, and the lingering questions that remain 13 years after she disappeared. The views and opinions expressed on the Untold History Revealed podcast are solely those of the individuals stating them and are not necessarily those of the owners.
So sit back and grab a cup of coffee
or tea
as we discuss some moments in history that may have been untold or forgotten.
Another episode of Untold History Revealed starts now.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Untold History Revealed. I am your host, Sean Donnelly.
I'm your loss of voice co-host, Mary Ann Donnelly.
Yeah, this one is, Mary Ann's going to be a little squeaky and chiming in the best she can, but I know that I'm going to get her adrenaline flowing in this one.
Probably.
This is going to be a more recent true crime case for us. This actually happened just 13 years ago, not in the late 1800s, like most of the stuff we talk about and investigate. What we're going to be talking about is the case of Casey Pitzer, which took place right here in our state of Ohio.
Correct.
Not too far from here. And our angle on this podcast is we're going to be talking more about the investigation and forensics and how potentially most of that got botched.
And some of our questions that we still have.
Yeah, absolutely. So this came to our attention, what was it?
Yesterday?
Yesterday?
Yep.
You received an email?
Yes.
About the case and your
Yes.
forensics?
Yeah, I get a couple of forensics listserv emails every day.
Yeah. We used to, when we did the podcast, explain who we were, what we did, and that kind of thing. And we kind of dropped off on that because most people listening know who we are. But, in case you don't, Mary Ann is a science teacher, and she also teaches forensics.
I teach forensic science.
So
at the high school level.
Yeah, at the high school level. But you know a little bit about forensic study and forensic, the way proper procedures and that kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
So in that email that you got, they had a link to a new documentary that came out on YouTube called Dead Silence, the Casey Pitzer investigation. And we had a little date night last night.
We did.
Where we watched that documentary, and that led to watching more podcasts and more videos and digging into the case and researching. And before you knew it, it was like, hey, I think we need to do a podcast on this because I think you got it because of the time. It was around, it was for stuff for St. Patrick's Day, wasn't it?
They posted it now, the new documentary, because it's almost the anniversary.
Yeah.
And so being that we have a show that's coming out almost the same time, we thought, well,
yeah. So even though we're both a little bit under the weather, Mary Ann more with her voice, and me with this tickle I've been fighting for a while. We decided, okay, let's just do this now that we have it fresh on our minds. We just watched it. Let's do the podcast and go on from there. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So before we get into this, in case you guys don't know, once you listen to this, it's actually, I don't know, it's not the history, it's the background of the case. And then we'll come back and talk about the documentary and some of the questions we still have, right?
Okay.
All right. The night of March 16th, 2013, the small town of Wilmington, Ohio was alive with the green glow of St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Bars were crowded, music spilled into the streets, and people gathered to enjoy a rare, warm evening before spring fully arrived. Among them was Casey Pitzer, a 32-year-old mother of two who had gone out with friends to enjoy the holiday weekend. Like many others that night, she expected nothing more than laughter, drinks, and a few hours away from the routines of everyday life. Casey spent the evening visiting local spots with friends, including a popular restaurant and later a bowling alley bar called Uncle Louie's. Surveillance cameras captured her laughter and speaking with people throughout the night. Witnesses later said she seemed to be in excellent spirits. But sometime after midnight, something changed. At some point during the early morning hours, Casey disappeared. Casey failed to return home. Concern quickly turned into panic. Friends and family began searching for her and calling around town, hoping someone had seen where she had went after leaving the bar. Days passed and no sign of her. In a town as small as Wilmington, disappearances are rare, and rumors began spreading quickly. Everyone seemed to have a theory about what might have happened. Nearly a week later, the search ended in tragedy. Casey's body was discovered in a retention pond near the Wilmington bypass, not far from a busy shopping area. The location itself raised immediate questions. The pond was in an open area that many locals traveled past every day. It was difficult for some to understand how she could have ended up there without anyone noticing. Authorities soon ruled Casey's death an accidental drowning, suggesting that alcohol and confusion may have led her to wander into the water during the night. To investigators, the case appeared straightforward, but to Casey's family, the explanation did not make sense. They believed there were too many unanswered questions and details that did not add up. Family members pointed to several troubling aspects of the case. Some reports suggested that Casey had injuries that were difficult to explain as a result of a simple fall. There were also concerns about how certain pieces of evidence were handled during the investigation, including the possibility that crucial evidence was overlooked or improperly collected, which could impact the case's outcome. Over time, these doubts only deepened the family's belief that something more sinister might have occurred. Another unsettling detail involves items found near the pond. Some witnesses claim that parts of Casey's clothing or personal belongings were discovered nearby, raising further questions about how she ended up in the water. To the family, the scene seemed unusual and possibly staged, though investigators maintained that the death was accidental. As the years passed, Casey's father became one of the most vocal advocates for reopening the case. He spoke publicly, organized efforts to raise awareness, and pushed for additional forensic testing. For him, the official explanation never brought closure. Instead, it left a lingering feeling that the truth about his daughter's death had never been fully uncovered. The case gradually gained attention beyond Wilmington, with online communities, podcasts, and independent investigators discussing the mystery. Many people who learned about the case were struck by the same question. Was Casey Pitzer the victim of a tragic accident, or did something far darker happen that night? More than a decade later, the story of Casey Pitzer remains one of Ohio's most debated modern mysteries. Officially, the case is closed as an accident, but for the family and many others who have followed the story, the unanswered questions continue to cast a shadow over that St. Patrick's Day night when Casey Pitzer vanished. Okay, well, that was the summary details of the case, what happened back in 2013. What we're going to do moving forward, I just want to give a little disclaimer here. We're going to talk about the documentary. We're going to talk about the information that we researched last night. There are a lot of people out there putting out podcasts and videos and TikTok videos and all kinds of stuff like that that are also investigating this case. And the family is trying to raise awareness to get the case reopened at the time of us recording this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link down in the description to a petition. Um, if after you hear this, if you believe that the case should be reopened, that you need to click on help the family to get the case reopened and investigate a little bit more and get some justice for Casey. So if as we go along here, if we have something wrong, if you know something different, please leave it down in the comments and let us know. Like I said, this is based off of the information that we've just recently gathered last night and what we'll be gathering over the next week here to get out this podcast. And then in our extension, if we find anything else, we'll add that. But we're also going to talk about the theories that we think, based on what we know, as to what may have happened. Okay. So, moving forward, the documentary. What did you think overall about the documentary?
I think that it was informative on what they didn't know or what was missing. I think that was important.
I think it
It's,
was well produced. I mean, it was a pretty
um,
interesting video that you would even find maybe on Netflix or something.
mhm. Yeah, it was definitely well put together. Again, not all the information is available because, some of it's just disappeared, but it's also they had like a binder that they showed in the video. It was like 5 inches thick of stuff that they have gathered that they had released to them and things like that. And so obviously this is not going to have all of that.
Right. Exactly.
And neither did the documentary, but it referenced it.
Exactly. So it starts out talking about Wilmington, Ohio. Well, it's a small town in rural Ohio. It's well, from us, it's a little bit past Columbus, so it's probably, if you're looking at a map, it would be southwest of Ohio, or of
Southwest in
Columbus.
Ohio.
Yeah, but it's southwest of
Yeah.
Columbus.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a small town, small Ohio town, like several others. Everybody knows everyone. Picturesque rolling hills, farms, fields. It was actually voted one of the top 10 small towns in the U.S. by Time Magazine.
Yeah, I don't know what year that was, and I have to admit that I'm not a Times Magazine reader. I've only read certain um, publications of it, but it was kind of interesting that this town was selected.
Yes, this particular town, one of the top 10
Yeah.
small towns. It's a place where parents let their kids roam in the streets.
Oh
They
my
don't
God, it
lock
has
their
to be.
doors. It's like it's a small farming community, and this tragedy took place.
I'm wondering if it's still like the same now, 13 years
That's what I
later.
said. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
have to go and find out. A little bit more about Casey herself. I mean, she loved her kids.
Yeah, in the video documentary, they were mentioning how, like, the sister said, every time we tried to take pictures of the kids, we couldn't get them by themselves because she was
Yeah,
always with them.
she was in with the kids, playing with them and
Yeah,
stuff. She was fun loving. She loved the outdoors. She raised her kids by herself, single mother. She actually purchased her own home too.
yeah,
And on the weekends, she'd occasionally go out with her sister. And her sister at that time was going through a recent divorce, so they would go out and blow off steam on the weekend. I mean, typical
that's
American,
yeah.
household.
One thing that I noticed that they didn't mention though, they never like mention the kid's dad at all. So I don't know how he plays a role in their lives, if he was deceased, if he was,
Yeah,
divorcee. I
if it
don't,
was a bad divorce.
right. Yeah, they just don't ever
They
mention
did
it
say that she raised the kids
by herself.
by
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah.
So maybe he was just like never in the.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't
we don't
know.
know. Yeah.
Uh,
So if anybody else knows,
yeah, if you do, let us know or comment or send us a link somewhere, and we'll go take a look. But on that night, March 16th,
hmm
we had a little debate over that last
we
night.
did. We did have a debate and we pulled up some calendars.
Yeah. So March 16th of 2013 was a Saturday,
Right.
which we
We
fact
verified.
checked. The temperature was in the low 30s, which is it was a little bit chillier.
Mhm.
Okay. She went out to dinner with friends to Buffalo Wild Wings, which they said in the documentary that's a typical night out for people. They go there for. So if you want to stay out after going out with your friends, which is St. Patrick's Day, of course they want to go out and have some
St.
fun.
Patrick Day weekend.
Well, yeah, the weekend,
Yeah.
whatever. They went to a place called Uncle Louie's Lounge, which
Mhm.
is a bar. And I don't understand from the different things that we watched if the bowling alley was there, or now it is a bowling
I think
alley,
now it's a bowling alley.
or was it a bar attached to the bowling
No, I
alley? I
think
don't.
it's a
Okay,
bowling alley now.
but it was just a bar then.
I believe so.
Yeah. Again, if you guys know, leave us a comment. Um, Probably end up going back and looking that up. But anyway, she was out having a good time. She went with a friend. Her sister didn't go. Her sister was actually going to go with her.
One of her sisters.
Yeah, one of her sisters, the one that would go out with her.
Yeah.
But her child got sick then. night. It was the first time that they really got sick. So she said, "No, I'm going to stay home. I'm not going out." Which they mentioned in the documentary, or she said in the documentary, things would have probably turned out way different. And what was your response?
Mine was, yeah, I could have, but she might have been killed too.
Right.
So you never know. She might have been able to save her sister because she wouldn't have gone, walking out down the road by herself. Or maybe the two of them would have somehow gotten an issue, and
Right.
so you never know.
So they were at Uncle Louis. Her and another friend were at Uncle Louis, and they were having a good time, and they were dancing, and there's footage of that, like surveillance footage from Uncle Louis. And um, the friend said, "Okay, I'm done. I want to go home," but she wanted to stay longer. Casey wanted to stay longer.
Yep.
Now here's where it gets kind of like you have to watch many different things to kind of try to piece this timeline together because it seems I don't fully understand it. Maybe you could jump in on it. So somehow they ended up outside,
Right.
okay? And then they ended up getting into some sort of fight or tussle or something like that. It's on the
Yeah.
surveillance.
Well, they say it. You can't hardly see it in the surveillance footage that they show, but they're like, here, see, they're fighting. Like,
Right.
oh no, I don't see them fighting, but okay.
Okay, so let's just back up a little bit because some witnesses said while they were inside dancing that Casey was just dancing, having a good time, and everything. And then other people saying that she was inside and she was so. They had another witness. One other witness says that she was so drunk she was throwing up all over the place and getting sick and all that other stuff. But the
You don't
footage
see
doesn't
anything
show
like
that.
that. Nothing like that.
Right, and that's important. Okay, as we go through this, that's important. Um,
Yeah, she walks around. She doesn't look like she's stumbling in any of the videos.
right, and
Even when
even
she
the footage
leaves,
outside.
definitely.
She does go over and sit down for a little bit, but she was dancing for at least 45 minutes straight. Of course, she's going to sit down. But then she gets up. You could see her walking away. You could see the tussle taking place. Okay. Then after that fight, so to speak, Casey starts walking home, and her friend goes to car where her daughter had come to pick her up, and pick them up to take them home. Casey didn't want to go with them. Somehow they had her purse and cell phone,
Yeah.
right?
And her keys, I guess, too.
And Casey had called her ex-boyfriend. I think they did
They had
say
just broken
ex-boyfriend,
up,
but they were trying
but
to reconcile and get
yes,
back together.
that's what
So
they
she
said.
had called him to come pick her up at the bar, right?
Or to come there. I don't know whether it was to pick her up or but to come there.
Right. And then we saw an interview of him by himself where he had said that he had seen her with her friends at that Buffalo Wild Wings earlier. He was there too, but then he went home, and then he got the call from her to later on to pick her up. Okay, so that kind of clarifies the timeline just a little bit. From Casey's house, or from the bar to Casey's house, was about 8 miles ish. They said it would be
They
about
said
a
it was,
3 hour
yeah.
walk,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the woman who was out with Casey all night, her friend, who then eventually got into a fight with in the parking lot,
Tussle.
also whatever, was Tammy McKay. She went back to the car and asked her daughter. Her daughter's name was Kendra Scott, if she would have her boyfriend, Michael Hartley, go find her, pick her up, and take her home.
Okay.
Okay. So that's important. And I don't think that they actually said in the documentary. If they did, I mean, we watched it twice.
No, they didn't.
I
They
don't
said that
think
she
they said,
recognized one of them, but didn't say
right.
like who
I
it
don't think
was.
that they mentioned that Kendra Scott's boyfriend was Michael Hartley.
No.
Okay. So keep that in mind. We're going to get to that. Here's where it gets interesting. Michael Hartley and his friend Brandon Reed, they have surveillance video in the Walmart parking lot, which is like across the street, where they show um, I think it was Brandon's car, was it a Ford? They show his car. They show somebody driving Casey's car behind him. And those two testified that they found her underneath the underpass, walking. She got in a car with Michael, and they started down the freeway to Michael's house to get his car instead of Brandon's because Brandon's car didn't have enough gas to take her home and come back. That's what they testified for. As they were driving down the freeway, Casey opened the door like she was going to get out, and whoever was driving, I don't remember which one, pulled over. She got out of the car and ran across four lanes of highway and basically disappeared from them. There's nothing else in that documentary or anything that I found that what those two guys did afterwards. Did they go after her? Did they stop her? Did they keep driving? Did they, what happened? That they didn't testify as to what happened. However, they both took polygraph tests. One of them came back of being inclusive, and the other one come back being
Deceptive.
deceptive.
So inconclusive and deceptive.
Yeah. Now remember that because that's going to come up again here. So after Casey disappeared out into the whatever it was, this was in March, so there's no overgrowth or anything. The next day, her ex-boyfriend, Eric Haig, it said in the documentary that the next morning he went out looking for her and went to her house, found that she wasn't home. But this is one of the questions I had about the documentary because she had called him that night to come get her, and he did go there to the bar but didn't find her anywhere. So why did it wait till the next morning that he went looking for her? Or did it
Well,
continue
I think it
on
said
from
that he
not
went.
finding her?
I think it said he went there the next morning to her house, or the next day. They didn't say it was the
But it
next.
was at that same
What was it?
time.
1 o'clock.
Yeah, this is like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Like it was the same time. Like he went there to the bar, she didn't show up, like she didn't come. Did he leave then and go to her house to see if she was home already? Because she wasn't answering her phone, obviously. Okay. And if her friend had her purse with her phone and everything, see, now I'm going to point this out too. If her friend had her purse with her phone in it and everything, you know that he would be calling her saying, "Hey, what's up? You told me to come get you. You're not here," and keep trying to call. Why didn't they pick up that phone and say, "We have her phone"?
Can you? I don't know because I've never done it. Can you if you have your phone have a lock on it? Can you answer a phone call?
I don't know.
I never locked my
I mean,
phone.
if your phone's locked and somebody's calling
Yeah,
you,
like if you know how you
do
have
you
to
have to unlock? I don't know. I've never had a lock on my phone either. If you're listening to this and you do, you lock your phone. Maybe she had the ringer turned off. I don't know. Some people do that. I know people who I try to call shut their ringer off and they only they answer text.
It's not me.
No, but in the documentary, those are just questions I have because it said the next day he went to her house, she wasn't there, and he called the police, which is why the police department didn't name him as a suspect because he called the police. The police then, in turn, contacted her sister, right?
Yes.
Her sister then put a post up on Facebook saying, Casey's missing. If anybody's seen her, please let us know. And it wasn't till the following morning that her sister called her dad and say, "Hey, Casey's missing."
Yeah. The 18th.
Right? Then that sparked off this whole search for her and the family. Well, the father actually knew a gentleman who had a search and rescue dog
Like
or
it was a
cadaver
friend.
dog.
It was a friend of the family that was in search and rescue,
Right.
and he had a cadaver dog.
And that's what led them to the retention pond.
Yes.
They got a hit on her, right? After searching all over the dog
Yes.
had it. Not the police department.
Correct.
It was a friend of the family who had a
Cadaver dog.
cadaver dog that got a hit.
Yes. And so the cadaver dog, they picked up this scent, went right to the retention pond that she eventually would be found in. And the cadaver dog, I guess, came across her boots.
Yeah. Which is another interesting thing. Which we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and bring it up from there.
Okay.
All right. So we'll be right back.
If you've ever driven past an old cemetery and wondered who's still listening, or stood in front of a historic building and felt like the story wasn't finished, you're already one of us. On our Haunted Travels over on YouTube, we go beyond the roadside signs and tourist plaques. We walk the battlefields, the prisons, the forgotten towns. And we uncover the true history, the legends, and the unexplained stories they never tell you on the tour. From haunted locations and American folklore, to true crime, obscure history, and chilling eyewitness accounts, every episode is a journey into the shadows of the past. And if you want to go even deeper, visit our blog, where we break down the research, the real history, and the stories that inspired each episode. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and travel with us. Subscribe to our Haunted Travels on YouTube and explore the full stories on our blog. History didn't stay buried, and neither do we.
History doesn't stay buried. Some stories refuse to rest. They linger in forgotten towns, prison walls, riverbanks, and crime scenes. That's what we explore at our Haunted Tales. On our YouTube channel, we bring history to life through graphic novel storytelling. True crime, folklore, paranormal legends, and the Dark Corners textbooks leave out cinematic visuals, real history, unsettling truths. And if you want to go deeper, our Haunted Tales blog dives into the research behind the stories, documents, historical context, and the details too disturbing or strange to ignore. This isn't campfire horror. This is documented history with teeth. Search Our Haunted Tales on YouTube and visit ourhauntedtales.com to read more. Subscribe, explore, and remember, some stories don't want to be forgotten.
Okay, we are back, and we're talking about the case of Casey Pitzer in Wilmington, Ohio, from 2013. Right?
Yes.
Then we started to talk about the boots. Okay, but the dogs hit on the boots first, and that's how they kind of figured that something was involved with the retention pond. Now, here's what's weird about the boots. Okay, you jump in. Maybe my memory's a little bit more foggier. Okay, in the documentary, they said that the dog like hit on the location of where the boots were, but yet the father has seen pictures of the boots of them floating in water, like floating in the water. He
Well,
took a picture of it and then took that to his daughter. And she said, "Yeah, these are Casey's boots."
no. What I remember, the way I took it, was that they thought somehow there's a picture in the documentation they got later saying that there's a picture of the boots floating in the water. But the father had seen a picture of the boots from the police,
Hmm.
and they're like, were these hers? And he didn't know, so he took a picture of it, sent it to his
He
daughter.
took a picture of the picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the picture of them floating in the water. It was just a picture of the boots.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and he asked his daughters, like, "Are these Casey's boots?" And the one sister said, "Yeah, I was with her
She bought them
last
this week.
week when she bought them." Right.
Yeah.
And they were unique boots. They were like heel color. I mean, like they were, they were not,
They're fancy cowboy
yeah,
boots.
fancy, well, cowgirl boots. Yeah. Okay, so then the police were brought in to search the retention pond. Now here's another thing that's kind of interesting. Like I said, we watched a documentary a couple times, and we watched a couple other things. Some said that it was 8 feet deep. Some said it was 35 feet deep, and there was actually the chief of police that said it was 24 feet deep. Right?
Yeah.
But when they first came out and did the dredging, they didn't find anything. Right? So they brought somebody else out who specialized in that, and they did a sonar scan of the retention pond, and that's when they detected a body on the other side of where the boots were found. So what they had to do was actually drain the retention pond down so that they could get to her body.
Yeah, I don't know if they ended up dredging before, but they did say they had a dive team that went in. They were looking, they couldn't find anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important to know that that water was 30 some degrees. It was below freezing, but there wasn't ice on the top of it, but the water was cold.
Super cold.
It's
Yeah.
important to know that. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about that here in
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, they retrieved her body. It was big news. There was all kinds of, news coverage and everything on this. And she was sent for autopsy. Toxicology came back. I mean, the autopsy, I don't even know if they did a full autopsy because it was just, well, okay, we'll get to that in a second. But the toxology said that she had alcohol in her system. Of course, she was at a bar, but she was also taking antidepressant pills. And in the toxicology report, it didn't detect that. Yet her sister said that she went and checked and that she did take that pill that day.
Hmm.
Which that's a little odd.
Yeah. And we haven't seen the autopsy report or the toxicology report. All we saw was the toxicology report that said, like a snippet, a picture of it in the video documentary that said
We
that
haven't
there was
actually saw the
no
actual document.
that there
We
was
went
no
looking for it, haven't been able to find it, and short of doing a public records request ourselves, which by the way, okay. All right. So anyways, that came back. The police department actually ruled accidental accidental drowning due to alcohol,
Yeah,
right?
but again, as I
Case
was getting to,
closed.
I don't know if it said in the toxicology report that there was alcohol in her system or not. We didn't see that part of it.
That was in the documentary. It said that. It was highlighted. I saw it.
The highlighted part was that there was none of her
Okay.
medication in it.
All right, but the police did rule the case as accidental drowning due to alcohol, right?
Yes.
And they closed the case.
Yes.
So then the family went to the police department and said, "Okay, case is closed. We want to do a public records request. We want all of the information about the case, including autopsy report, photographs, and everything, because the father only received like 4 photographs from the autopsy. They said they were blurry. You couldn't even see anything, and they blocked out her face, so they redacted some of the stuff on it.
Which they would have done that for like trying to be nice to him so that they didn't see his daughter that way. You know what I mean? It's not like I feel like they would have done that no matter who it was, no matter what case. I feel like if the family was gonna see those pictures, that they probably would have covered up the face so that it was kind of like, okay, we're showing you, but we want you to remember your kid the way they were.
Okay. Well, anyways, they didn't turn everything over to him. He
No.
eventually sued them to get everything, uh, which he did. He had to have a court case to get all the evidence and everything from the police department and the autopsy and everything. And he got like a 5-inch thick binder, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, that's what they showed.
Um, and here's another thing too. When she was sent to the funeral home, the clothes that she was wearing, um, the funeral home destroyed the clothes because they said they smelled too bad, or they throw them out. The funeral director, we do have that document where he made a statement. Yeah, we threw them out because they smelled so bad, and we didn't think the family wanted them. Now, according to Ohio law, that should have been turned over to the family and let them determine whether they're going to throw them out or not.
Yeah, and I don't know how long it was before they determined like, hey, we're gonna call this, an accident versus we don't know if this is, accidental or not. Because if it was before they'd made that determination, they should never have even gotten that stuff. It should have just been automatically given to the police as evidence. You always have the clothing that the victim was wearing as evidence in a case.
Okay, well, you're in this group more forensic expert than I am. But do you want to go over some of the stuff about the autopsy that they talked about in the case that we missed, maybe?
Um, well, according to the information that they presented in there, like we didn't see any pictures from the autopsy that showed that there were no scratches or anything on her body anywhere because they only showed a couple of the pictures. Um, but supposedly there was no scratches on her body and there was like a wire fence, a barbed wire fence around the retention
Yeah,
pond.
yeah.
Now, was that fence there 13 years ago? I don't know, but there is today. Um, they said they showed a picture of her hand and it was like frozen in place, holding on to or gripping grass and dirt. So,
Which is one thing that we talked about before we watched it the second
yes,
time last night,
yes.
was she was in that water for at least a week,
Yeah, they
right?
said they found her on day 8.
Day 8, okay. Her hand was clutched, gripping that thing, and I'm like, "Man, like, how long does, like, rigor take to set in, and how long does it last?"
Yeah.
Right?
hmm
And you double checked your notes.
I double checked my notes that I sent out to my kids every year for my class. And so rigor starts at about 2 hours after death, and it peaks at 12 hours after death, and then it'll kind of keep going until it goes through the whole body. It starts at the head, works its way down to the feet, and then it goes back, and in the same order, it'll start to unrigor. So it'll start to, for those of you who don't know, rigor is like when your muscles set, right? So it's like you get frozen in place. So it kind of hardens. That's why if sometimes you see in movies and stuff where they're like looking at a dead body at a crime scene or something and they're like pulling the fingers back to try to see what they're holding on to, it's because those fingers are in rigor. Sort of frozen in that spot. The muscles don't move anymore. And that'll undo itself the same way it goes in.
Mhm.
And so it'll start at the head and work back to the feet again, um, all the way through the extremities and everything. And it usually will go into rigor for like about 12 to 24 hours and then it starts to go back to unrigor and it lasts like 48 to 84 hours. Just depends on conditions like cold and whether the person was clothed and whether they had exercised before and all these kinds of things. They all play a role in how long that process takes.
Yeah, but not a week.
It should not have taken a week, no.
Okay. So the picture that they had of her holding the grass, and then you also said in that picture there wasn't
There wasn't,
slippage.
yeah, I said that when I looked at it at first, I was like, oh my gosh, she was in the water for 8 days. She's not bloated. There's no skin slippage. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
And then that's normally what happens when a body's in
Yeah, so when a body goes in water, the water is gonna like absorb into the body. You guys have all been like in a pool, you know, your body absorbs that water and stuff like that. And you've all seen again, probably shows on television where they're like in, you know, showing that somebody's been submerged in water and they always come out bloated, right?
So we were talking about this kind of stuff like this last night after we watched it the first time and some of the other
Date
videos.
night at the Donley
Yeah,
household.
like this was our discussion that we were having. And then like I don't know why. Oh, I know why. We said, okay, we're going to do the podcast. Let's watch the documentary again and take notes.
Yeah,
And as we were watching it, he said that when they took her out of the water, her body was frozen
yeah,
because of the temperature of the water was under 30 degrees,
yeah. So it
which
kind of
it kind of explains why those typical aspects of the forensics like didn't play.
yeah, it kind of explain why there wasn't all that bloating and that like when they touched her skin it didn't like pull off like skin slippage, that kind of stuff. It made a lot more sense.
Yeah. And then they said like with the grass in her hand, like was she trying to climb to get out? Like did she accidentally go in and was trying to climb her way out? Was she, or was somebody dragging her towards there
And she was like clawing at the
and she
ground.
was clawing at the grass and then it's just how that she was underwater for
8 days
8
holding that
days holding
grass.
that grass, and when they took it out, she was still holding the grass. That's just weird.
Yeah, It's cool.
Very weird. And then what else they have? They had a mark on her neck that they
Yeah,
don't know if it looked like a strangulation mark or if it was a coloration from the beads that she was wearing.
they said or grass, and I totally dismissed the grass.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. The beads, I can go with the beads because if she was wearing like beads around her neck, she was dancing for like 45 minutes beforehand, right? So when you sweat and you're wearing those cheap beads, they're gonna like leach the coloration off onto your skin. So it kind of that makes more sense to me than anything.
Yeah. So what were some of the other questions that you're asking that should have been like part of the forensic analysis or forensic investigation? Like you're saying something about her eyes.
Yeah, so they were trying to determine like her death, how she died, and they ruled it a accident, right? So I asked, we haven't seen the autopsy report itself. Does the autopsy report say that there was any petechiae in her eyes? Because petechiae is like where the blood vessels of your eyes, they like kind of rupture, and usually that happens if you're strangled. So you'll get petechiae in the eyes. So I was saying, hey, is there any of that? Like, did we have any data on that? And then I don't know what else we were.
Well, you said, well, there's the discussion too about, and this will come about when they actually finally got the records. Okay. So there's a discussion too about the rape kit. But you had mentioned something that
Yeah.
was interesting about the rape kit. It's not always just the, you know,
So
vaginal area. They
yeah,
also take samples of the underneath the fingernails and things like that,
yeah. So they'll
right?
take fingernail clippings. They'll take scrapings from underneath the fingernails, and they'll use that if they think maybe they try to scratch at a perpetrator or something like that, and they'll use that for those types of investigation purposes. So it's not always just a rape kit because they think that the person was raped. Do they think she was? I don't know. They never bring up that she was, but they constantly bring up the rape kit, the rape kit, the rape kit.
Which, as of today, does not exist.
Correct.
Okay. Uh, Let's come back to that. Okay. Because there's a couple other things too. The two gentlemen who said they picked her up was driving with her and took off. Okay. Their DNA was not taken
No.
for the case. Their cars were not gone over through the investigation looking for DNA evidence. Those of you who know about the O.J. Simpson case and stuff, they found DNA evidence of the victims inside that Bronco. Okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, got to think about they were never charged. So they may have asked. We don't know because we don't see the 5-inch
But
binder. We don't know if they were asked
what
and
I'm
said
saying is
no.
if they did DNA analysis of the car, it would have proved their story that she was in their car and they were driving and she tried to get out. Okay. They're just going by what they said. Okay.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Well, they would have potentially found evidence that she was in the vehicle. But they again said she was in the vehicle. So I would expect her to have DNA in the
They were
car.
allegedly the last two people to see her alive. Why wouldn't you take their car and just try to prove that what they're saying is right? Which, by the way, they failed the polygraph tests, right? And then later on, like just recently, the one guy, I forget who the guy, which one it was, went and said, "Hey, I'm tired of living in this small town like this, and everyone's saying I'm involved with this. I want to take the DNA or the lie detector test again." Right?
Yes.
And he failed the second time. He goes, "Well, that's not true. This isn't right. Let's do it again." So they gave it to him again, and he failed the third time.
Yeah. So he's taken it 3 times, failed 3 times. Yes.
Okay, which that's strange,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
What else do we have strange? Let's go back to the rape kit.
Okay.
According to the authorities, this case is closed.
Yes.
Okay, there's evidence that went with this. Well, that was part of this case. Okay, unfortunately, it was destroyed. And allegedly, that rape kit was one of those items that was supposed to be destroyed. And we did look last night in the state of Ohio, that's illegal because it's part of somebody's DNA. you're not allowed to destroy that evidence,
Biological evidence in a
biological
case
evidence.
of death is not supposed to be destroyed.
But this judge was handed a list of over 1,000 items. Hey, we want to, what do you say? Release custody of this to have it destroyed so they have room in their facility for more evidence. And he signed off on it and they destroyed a bunch of this evidence.
But he also claims that the rape kit was not on that list. He said, why would I have
Yes. And
signed
the
off on
officers
that?
who destroyed the information are like, we didn't destroy a rape kit, but yet it is in the discovery or the public records request that stated that there was one,
Right.
right? So
Yes.
where did that go? What happened to it? It's just the whole case, the investigation and everything, because they just said, okay, she accidentally drowned due to alcohol, case closed. They really didn't investigate it that much. Like you said, like that fence that went around there, like it's just there's no justice for her. It wasn't fully investigated correctly. I'm sorry. It wasn't. Period. For what we know from what we learned last night about the case.
Yeah. Again, I would really love to see the full autopsy report and see what it says because I do that. I read autopsy reports for fun. Um, but like it would tell me a lot more things, I think, that would be helpful to know a little bit more about what really happened in her final hours.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take another break and we're going to come back and we're going to have another little short section because there's a couple more things we want to talk about here before we go into the extension. So let's take another quick little break and we'll be right back.
If you've ever driven past an old cemetery and wondered who's still listening, or stood in front of a historic building and felt like the story wasn't finished, you're already one of us. On our Haunted Travels over on YouTube, we go beyond the roadside signs and tourist plaques. We walk the battlefields, the prisons, the forgotten towns. And we uncover the true history, the legends, and the unexplained stories they never tell you on the tour. From haunted locations and American folklore, to true crime, obscure history, and chilling eyewitness accounts, every episode is a journey into the shadows of the past. And if you want to go even deeper, visit our blog, where we break down the research, the real history, and the stories that inspired each episode. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and travel with us. Subscribe to our Haunted Travels on YouTube and explore the full stories on our blog. History didn't stay buried, and neither do we.
History doesn't stay buried. Some stories refuse to rest. They linger in forgotten towns, prison walls, riverbanks, and crime scenes. That's what we explore at our Haunted Tales. On our YouTube channel, we bring history to life through graphic novel storytelling. True crime, folklore, paranormal legends, and the Dark Corners textbooks leave out cinematic visuals, real history, unsettling truths. And if you want to go deeper, our Haunted Tales blog dives into the research behind the stories. Documents, historical context, and the details too disturbing or strange to ignore. This isn't campfire horror. This is documented history with teeth. Search Our Haunted Tales on YouTube and visit ourhauntedtales.com to read more. Subscribe, explore, and remember, some stories don't want to be forgotten.
All right, we are back. This is a rare instance where we actually have a third section here, but we have a little bit more to talk about before we move on. One thing I want to mention too, if that lady, Tammy, was that good of a friend, even though they just got into a tussle, tiff, whatever,
Mhm.
you're not going to let a friend who is inebriated walk at 2 o'clock in the morning, a young woman, 30 some years old, okay, 3 hours in the dark to her house. I don't get that. Like, maybe she was mad too, and that's why she said, "Hey, go have your boyfriend go pick her up." But at least, like, if she wouldn't get in the car, follow her. You know what I mean? Like, look after your friend. I don't know. What's your opinion on that one? Like, or was she just that mad, just like let her go type
I
thing?
I think that they could have been just that mad. Like I would hope that You know,
Would you get that mad though? Like if you were in that situation and you had a friend, okay, you guys got in a you're mad at her and everything, but here it is, like what is it? Like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. She's a little bit drunk, she's a little bit vulnerable, she's a young woman. You're gonna let her walk 8 miles, 3 hours in the dark just because you're mad?
I'm gonna say probably not, but at the same time, you never know. Girls are
Yeah,
control
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
we
see what you're
we
saying.
hold grudges and we get mad at each other, and that's the way it is. But at the same time, too, I don't know that I would have sent my boyfriend to get her, but maybe that was
Daughter's
nice.
boyfriend.
Oh, I thought it was her boyfriend. His
Oh, it was her
daughter's.
daughter's
Oh, okay.
boyfriend.
Okay.
Her daughter's
But
the one that picked them up.
I would I would probably have given her some time to cool off, let her walk a little bit, but then
Well,
go
that's
like
what I'm
pick her up.
saying is follow her, like at a
Go
distance.
pick her up.
Let's let her walk, but just follow her and see where she goes and what happens. I don't. Okay, so cell phone records. Here's another thing too. I really truly don't understand like the location of Casey's phone, but as part of the evidence that they got from the case, they only received records like from like some text that she sent where she was saying that she was sick of this life or something like that.
That wasn't that day. That was like
I
before.
know, but that was part of the
It was part of the
turnover.
turnover.
So it seems like the police are trying to paint this picture of Casey of being this drunk harlot out, whatever, wanted to kill herself. Case closed. It
Just to
wasn't
make it
like,
simple.
yeah, it
Gotcha.
wasn't like, okay, here's the triangulation of like where did her friend go after, you know what I mean? She asked her daughter's boyfriend to go get her. Like, where did she go? Did she go home? They could have traced or tracked Casey's phone if it was in that car to find out
Well,
where did they go.
I thought they said that the phone records that they got, they were subpoena. They did subpoena phone records. This grand jury did, but they only got Casey's.
But
So
did it show?
they had asked for like six or seven other ones too, but they only got
Well,
Casey's.
they didn't ask. They subpoenaed them,
I know that's the subpoena was asking for
and they didn't get
to
them, or they
investigate.
weren't in the evidence that was turned over to the family.
Right. And I don't know why they really wanted
Bottom line, the
hers.
whole thing was just like botched, or
Yeah.
stuff was destroyed, or evidence was faked, or changed, or whatever. I kind of think that,
Mistakes were made.
oh yeah, I kind of think that, you know, and they even like allude to the coroner's office like subcontracted the autopsy with some different like company. I think they botched that up completely. And then they didn't want to turn over that stuff over because they're looking at the autopsy going, oh man, I can't believe, you
Now that's
know,
your interpretation.
that's my interpretation. No, and that's the thing. Like I'm thinking, oh, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have hired this vendor or, whatever. But
Yeah. I don't think it was necessarily vendor. I think it was like they outsourced it to like the county or something like that. So it wasn't.
yeah, it was just a mess. So we do have some questions. Did I cover everything else I wanted to cover? I wanted to talk about the cell phone case and why she just let her go off by herself. That's a horrible friend. Which, if you can hear it, I don't know if you can. There are sirens off in the distance, so we apologize for that. I hope they're not coming here. I don't think they are. But you might not be able to hear it because it didn't even pick up my cell phone when it rang. Well, what we're going to do is we'll argue more our theories in the extended version. Down in the description, we're going to put a link to the extended version of this podcast for our Patreon supporters. We're also going to include links to that documentary we were talking about and some of the other things, research that we found, or any more that we find of this next week before this comes out. You can unlock all of that information, including previous uh, podcasts and behind the scenes stuff from our haunted travels and all that stuff on our podcast or on our Patreon page for just $1 a month. It's at $12 a year. It unlocks all that, and you'll have access to everything that we've found. So that's that commercial. Let's talk about questions. At the end of our podcast, we normally have some questions. We'd like to hear what you think about these too. So if you want to leave a comment and answer their questions, either here on the podcast or over there on the Patreon page, we'll definitely get them over there and see what you think. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Question number one. What detail in the Casey Pitzer's case stands out to you the most? And why do you think that particular moment or piece of evidence is important?
So, um, the piece of evidence that I think is most important is a piece of evidence that no longer exists, and that's her clothing. Her clothing would have given so much information, I feel, because if if there were any cuts, rips, anything in her clothing that could have explained, like, why was there not any scratches on her body, or as they allude to, right? Because maybe her clothing was too thick and it didn't quite get to her skin, but you could see that it was pulled on by the barbed wire or ripped or something. Or if she was indeed raped, like were her clothes ripped in such a way that it would indicate that, or that she was trying to escape being raped? Because for some reason she was like trying to jump out of that car.
Mhm.
So I feel like her clothes told a lot of that, but also, you know, uh, if she was drug along, we might have seen parts of her clothing that had like mud ground into it. Uh, you know, did different things. Like, was she taken somewhere else and then dropped off there later because they didn't see her the first time when they were looking for her in the retention pond, and they came across her body later, days later? Like, was she somewhere else and then they like dropped her off? So like you could look at, were there other things that were embedded in her clothing that would have indicated she was somewhere else?
Okay.
So that I feel
So
would have been really important.
talking about the clothing, that's one thing that we forgot to talk about before we got into the questions. There was another picture. Was it in the documentary or was it in the other stuff we were watching?
Might have been in the extra stuff we were
Right, we'll
watching.
find it again
It
and
was
put a post.
definitely
But there's a picture of the lower half of her body, and it does look like her leg was broken, and she did have her pants on.
yes, it's true.
Okay. But when you
Yes.
were talking about rips, there was a rip on her left knee, but that could have been a style type thing. You know how girls wear those jeans and the cut, whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay. So her left knee was like exposed, but her right leg definitely looked like it was broken.
Yeah.
Now, did that happen when they were picking her up, when they were dredging, before she died, before whatever?
And the autopsy report would be able to look into that as
Yes.
well. They'd be able to tell if something happened post-mortem or ante-mortem, you know?
Okay, next question. If you were following the case when it first happened, what questions would you have wanted the investigators to answer right away?
Personally, I want to know how.
Oh, and here's another thing too. When they first took those two guys first took the polygraph tests,
Yeah.
okay, and they basically both failed.
Yeah.
They told the family that they passed them with flying colors. Police told the family that they passed the polygraph test with flying
Hmm.
colors,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Why would they say that?
I don't know.
Well,
But
obviously they didn't. But anyways,
yeah.
go ahead.
Um,
So
I,
that leads to my answer to that is like, so they're telling the family, they're basically, it's when they tell the family it's coming out in public that these guys took a polygraph test and they're clear, they're fine.
mhm.
It's like, really?
Okay, so that's your answer for the first question.
Well, the second question
Oh,
is like, why didn't the police investigate this more? Like, why are they just like,
well,
case
see,
closed, we got other stuff to do? But it's a small town. What else is there to do in that small town? I guess during that time there was a fatal accident that they were investigating too, but that's what your job is, right?
mm,
Look into this stuff. Give justice for the victims. Like, come on.
well, I want to know how they hit on the retention pond initially. I know that they say that the family had that friend who was um, the diver who had an or a cadaver dog, and the cadaver dog found it. I get it, but twofold. Why was it them having to do it and not the police? And
Exactly.
two, And two, if she was in a vehicle driving away at 50 miles an hour, how did that dog and somebody who has a cadaver dog may be able to like or a canine might be able to answer this for me. How is that dog going to get from that facility that she was at, Uncle Louie's, following her down the road there, to
Good
where she
point.
got picked up? She got from a vehicle.
Yeah.
When she was in the vehicle, it's usually they lose
The
the
dogs
scent.
the dogs would have went to the allegedly would have went to the underpass where they picked her up,
And
and their
then
scent would have
the
been
scent would have been
lost.
lost. So how did they get from there to the retention pond? Unless,
And
now that
if
I'm
her boots
thinking,
were on her when she was submersed in water, you told me that once they go underwater too, the scent is lost.
yes, that's true.
So
My
I don't.
the only other thing that I can think of is that maybe they did get information from the guys. And they said, okay, we saw her running across here. We stopped here, and then maybe they went and said, okay, well, that's where we're going to start our search.
Mhm.
That could be. Maybe that's my answer, but
But we
that's
looked
something
at
I
the
want to look
map.
at.
We looked at a map. We brought up that area, that whole area on Google Maps, which I'll put in our on our Patreon page and everything. There's multiple retention ponds
Yes.
around there, and we were trying to figure out which exactly one where she was at. But there's like two or three other retention ponds around there, and there's actually one right behind that Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
They build those retention ponds basically when they have like intersections and stuff like those ponds or lakes or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your answer? Those of you listening, leave us a comment. Let us know. All right, last question. Why do you think some cases continue to capture public attention long after the events occurred? What makes the story like this stay with people?
Well, one, when something is unsolved or there's a question as to whether that's really what happened, people continue to want to look into it because they want to know the truth. They want to dig and find the answer. So that's like one. And two, when it happens to be somebody that's like
But
your
why?
normal
Why do
person,
people want? Okay.
because they want to
Well,
know.
I'm going to continue on that answer. They want to know for two reasons.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Number one, they want to know just to get the answer of the truth. People want to know the truth. Bottom line, they want to know the truth. But second, they want to know if there was injustice done. Did somebody not do their job right? Who was responsible? What was the motive? Why are they covering it up? And why are those people still there doing that job? If they screwed something up, get rid of them. People in general, in society, if somebody screws up a job or something that they're doing and being paid for, if they screw it up, they should not be in that position anymore. Right? Don't you think that?
Yeah.
Find something else to do.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
But my second thing was like also when it's somebody it's somebody that you could know, you
Mhm.
know? So like even though we don't know who she is, we don't know who all these people were, they're people like you and me. So they're
Yeah,
like
they're average people.
they're average people you want to know because it could be you, it could be your family member or friend. And then when it's somebody who's not just the every everyday Joe or whatever, um, when it's somebody famous, we always want to know because we think that their lives are so important. They're famous, so they owe us that explanation to know what's going on. So I think that no matter who it is, we always want to know because we think we're owed that. If it's somebody that's like um, famous, we think that we want to know because we it could be somebody that we would know, like a family member or something of our own, and we take um, that emotional connection to them.
Yeah. So let us know your answer down below. All right. I think we've kept them long enough.
Okay,
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add, though?
not at this moment.
All right. So we're going to continue on our discussion here in our extension of this, and we're going to talk about our theories about what. Have you thought of a theory yet? I have. I got one of how this happened, who did it, why they did it.
Ooh,
I even have a motive.
wow.
Right?
It's you.
Okay. Plus, on there, we're also going to list all the evidence that we found, links to the documentary, and we hope to see you over there.
All right.
Okay. All right, folks. Till next time.
Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to
Untold History Revealed.